I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video. I don't know if I've said this before, but I'm gonna say it again just so you all know where I'm usually coming from. When I start watching a new series, I usually give it a 3-episode trial period, meaning that I will watch the first 3 episodes, and then I'll determine how I feel. If I feel like there are warning signs of where it's going to go that I can see from a mile away, or I feel like this is just a waste of my time, or the show is just plain bad in every conceivable way, then I'll drop it. If I'm invested or I don't feel like I'm wasting my time, I'll keep going. Now, there are exceptions to this rule, of course. Sometimes it takes a little longer for a series to show its true colors. Sometimes I will watch a series that I really like, I'll get a certain length in, stop watching it for whatever reason, and when I think about picking it back up sometime later, I'll realize I didn't miss it all that much while it was gone, and it's just not worth going back to. But sometimes, on very rare occasions, all I need is 1 episode. Sometimes a show is so bad right out of the gate that I don't need to see past the first one to know what's in store. Netflix's live-action Cowboy Bebop is one of those shows. It is really, really bad. And I've only seen the first episode, as I was implying, but I don't need to see any more. And I may as well let you guys know up front, before we get much further, yes, I am going to be drawing parallels between the remake, what I've seen of it at least, and the original series. You might say, that's not fair. You have to judge this thing as its own series. Well, no, I don't. It's a remake. It's clearly aiming for the style. It tried up to a certain point at least to recreate what is in the show. It uses the same opening music, for heaven's sake. It's inviting that kind of comparison. Besides which, we need something good to explain why it's bad anyway. But even if I were just judging it entirely on its own merits, I would never call this a good show. The best thing I can say about it is that the special effects are decent. They're not anything special, really, but I would say on a scale from remake Battlestar Galactica to original Lost in Space, it's somewhere in the Firefly region. They're not an eyesore is what I'm getting at. But that's the only good thing I can say. That and, okay, the music is good. The music is in the line, in the spirit of what the original show was going for. But again, I wouldn't exactly call it anything special either. I don't really remember any of the pieces that played other than the opening, which is the same opening the anime had. And that's not even original to the Netflix series, so make of that what you will. But as for everything else, it wasn't good. I don't even know where to start. Well, one thing I can start with, you may have occasionally seen some reviews say that the show needs some darn color. I agree with that assessment. Again, I'm going on the first episode, but like, when you see the characters go to Tijuana in the first episode of the anime, it's got natural lighting. I know it's animated, but the way it's colored makes the illusion of natural lighting. So you're looking at it, it looks like natural sunlight. You can see all the individual colors of different things. Maybe there's a bit of a haze the further back you go and detail becomes less refined, but it still looks like there's natural sunlight getting in and you can see all the colors. When they get to Tijuana in the live action version, everything is yellow. Like somebody took a leak on the camera lens. It's all just this unpleasant yellow, which I guess they were trying to recreate that sort of Western atmosphere, I guess, but it doesn't look good. Everything is the same shade of yellow, or what it would look like if you spilled yellow onto it. So, yeah, if that's what it's going to be like going forward, where they color code everything in that way, or God forbid they just turn to yellow every time there's a new planet they go on, then this is not going to be a very pleasant show to look at. But then again, Cowboy Bebop has never been a show about locations, it's a show about characters. And yeah, that's where it really falls apart. The acting is, much like the special effects, nothing special. I can't really say that the actors playing our three main leads do anything to really stand out. I don't think they're going to be as memorable as what we have in the original series, either Japanese or English. Like, Jet Black's performance sounds like it's kind of trying to replicate the original anime performance. Spike feels like he's being played by someone who's a little bit bored. Faye is played in the most annoying way they could think of. In fact, you know what? I'm going to zero in on Faye for a little bit, because I may as well get that part out of the way. Faye has been a point of controversy for this show from the beginning because of her costume design, specifically how it changed. Of course, in the original series, she was wearing a revealing outfit, an outfit that drew attention to her body, because she's a femme fatale. She is supposed to be the sort of character who knows she is sexy and wants you to know that she's sexy as well, so she can pull a fast one on you. But that was changed for this series. And a quick aside, the recent interviews have clearly shown that the argument of the costume being changed because it was impractical for doing stunts has been disproven at this point, because there's apparently an interview with the costume designer who said that the thought process that went into designing Faye's costume was, I don't want her to wear a sexy outfit. I don't want her to be sexualized. So that argument was completely false. Of course, anyone who's ever watched a gymnastics video could tell you that it's false. But, well, now we have definitive proof of that. And when I did my own analysis on the costume change, I said that because Faye's original design was so specific to her and actually gave us a few visual clues of what kind of person she is, changing her outfit could also have indicated a change of character. And that was very much the case. I called it. They did change Faye's character. I don't even think this is the same character as Faye Valentine. There is nothing recognizable about her. In a lot of ways, actually, she's basically just a man. She's another male character that they decided to cast a woman with. That's how she's written. There are far too many female characters like that sneaking into fiction these days, but it's especially egregious when the character it happens to is literally a femme fatale. Literally a character who has to be a woman who plays to the fact that she is a woman, and you just masculinized her to that degree. That's the real crime here. The costume, I mean, changing the costume was a bad thing. Changing the costume was our clue of what was coming, but it is the actual alterations to her character that don't work. Also, Faye doesn't really get much of an introduction. Like, in the original anime, there was an entire episode devoted just to introducing Faye. In fact, the opening scene of that episode was just Faye on her own, away from the Bebop crew. That's how she was treated. She was considered important enough that we had to establish her on her own before she joined the main cast. In the reboot, this is literally how it goes. We have Spike and Katarina, who for some reason is given a backstory about how she's run away from home that wasn't in the original series and is never elaborated on in this episode, and since she's dead by the end, I doubt it ever will be. But anyway, they're having their little interaction, which is kind of similar, more or less, to how it plays out in the first episode of the anime, and then all of a sudden Faye is there. That is literally I'm not exaggerating. She is just suddenly there. She materializes behind Spike with a gun to his head, telling him to back off of her mark. She didn't get any... Well, no. I was about to say she didn't get any build-up. She does get one bit of build-up, but it's really poorly handled. Basically, Jet goes to the bar where Asimov and Katerina get ambushed. Again, like in the original episode. But rather than find the two guys who are looking for them and getting the information out of them, he just talks to the bartender and pays her for this little bit of information she's holding out on him, which it's weird that he parts with it so easily when he's so money conscious in this series. But she takes the money and says, there's another bounty hunter looking for them, a woman with purple hair. That information is not relevant to what Jet is asking about in any way. There's no reason that he needs to know that. But there is a reason we need to know that as the audience, because otherwise Faye's appearance is even more spontaneous. Otherwise she appears without any build-up at all. So that little bit is as shoehorned in as she is. And when she's actually joined the crew, she is insufferable. She is written really irritatingly, and yeah, everyone was right to be concerned about how Faye would turn out. That was a big problem. But she is far from the only problem. Let's talk for a moment about Spike and Jet. Now, in the original series, I did tell you I would constantly be referring back to the original series, but in the original series, they don't really open up to anyone, including each other. They have mastered the art of not talking about things. Like, at first it starts off kind of like a little quirky thing where Jet is trying to talk about the job they have ahead of them, and Spike is trying to ignore him basically by complaining about how the bell peppers and beef he made for dinner doesn't have any beef in it. It seems like he's not paying attention. That frustrates Jet, and they have that sort of rapport. But as it goes on, you get the sense that, yes, they're partners, but by like the 5th episode, I believe it is, we suddenly learn that they don't actually know anything about each other. They have pasts that they wanted to leave behind, and they never talk about them, not even when they have some downtime and they don't have anything else to say. Jet doesn't know anything about where Spike came from, his connections to the Syndicate or anything. Spike doesn't know how Jet lost his arm. And at the one moment where it seems like Jet is going to explain how he lost his arm, he really doesn't. He just gives a vague explanation of what happened that's more about making a certain point than it is about revealing anything personal. And it stays that way throughout the whole series until I think the most poignant scene in the original series that demonstrates what I'm talking about is after Edward, Ein, and Faye have all left. And it's just Spike and Jet on the boat again. And they're sitting there, they've cooked up the eggs that they got from Edward's father. It's a bountiful feast, first meal they've had with protein in it for a long time. And they're just sitting there. You can tell by their expressions that they want to talk, that they feel like they should talk, but it's not in their nature, so they're not going to. Instead, they just start aggressively stuffing their mouths with those eggs so that their mouths will be full and neither of them will be tempted to break the silence. And that's towards the end of the series. After we've seen them go through all of this stuff, they still can't open up to each other. And that's a powerful moment that speaks to both of those characters. Even though we've seen inside of them, we know a bit more about their pasts. They don't know any of that stuff, and they're not going to share it anytime soon. In the remake, they're oversharers by comparison. Not to the point where they're just opening up about everything, but like Jet's talking about how he needs to make money for his daughter because her birthday is coming up and he has to get her the latest toy. Like, that's not the sort of thing Jet would have originally said. Spike and Jet start cracking jokes with each other. They have more of a friendly rapport, if you will. Which, I mean, I'm not against the idea of people having a friendly rapport, but that's not what these characters are about. These are guys who work together. They certainly don't hate each other, but they're not about to get all buddy-buddy with each other. So their characters are also altered, even though they look more like their original counterparts than Faye does. Again, by comparison, they're still not the original characters. I don't even think there's anything you can draw. They're just not what they should be. It's like this show was written by people who either missed the point or didn't get it but thought they could still do better. That's the real issue. And there are other issues as well, like a general lack of consistency with certain things. Like the opening scene, which is lifted from the original Cowboy Bebop movie, Jet and Spike kill most of the marks in the casino. Then they get upset that they can't collect the full bounty because they killed most of the marks. And then they start cracking jokes about how they killed all the marks. So what's my takeaway from that? Am I supposed to be in favor of them wantonly killing people or not? Are they in favor of it or not? It's lacking in internal logic. You also have stuff like, there's this weird anti-capitalism message that sort of creeps its way in. Like, the first thing we hear is the primary bounty that they're going after ranting against corporations. And later on, this is followed up by a sly commentary about how going through the warp gate charges for literally everything that happens in the warp gate. That stuff wasn't in the original series, and I don't see why it's in this new series. It feels like it was just another way for the writers to sneak in their politics, along with the alterations they made to Faye and anything else that might come after this first episode, which I don't care about anymore. But then again, there's one last thing that really needs addressing, and this was the clincher for me. So, Vicious is in this series. Vicious is, of course, the primary antagonist for Spike. But in the original series, he didn't turn up all that much. He only turned up when he needed to turn up. Here, though, he's being billed as the arc villain. He's going to be the bad guy the whole way through. They're building up to the big confrontation with him. And, well, they really didn't stick the landing with Vicious at all. See, the original series, they built up Vicious just over the course of a single episode, but they really built him up well. They conveyed menace every possible way they could think of. Through the lighting of a scene, through the camera angles in which he's framed, through the lack of music that comes when he first appears, or the music that is creating that atmosphere when he speaks his name. There's all sorts of stuff that builds up the menace, and that's important because, let's face it, his name is Vicious. That sounds like an 8-year-old was trying to come up with a Batman villain. That could have potentially backfired, but because they built him up so well, by the time we learn that his name is Vicious, any chance you might have had at thinking that was silly has dissipated. You take it seriously. And everyone else takes him seriously as well, so he becomes an effective villain. Now, we get to the remake. And they try framing him in a similar way. They try lighting him in a similar way. It's not quite right, but then we get the big reveal when he turns around and we see him in full. And I cracked up laughing. No exaggeration. I actually broke out in laughter when I saw this because he was mugging. The guy was mugging for the camera. He was trying to look menacing. The thing about having a menacing expression, folks, is that it's not all that different from a neutral expression when you do it right. You just have to keep your face at a fairly neutral way, and most of the work goes with the eyes, either narrowing them slightly to make it look like you're really focused on someone, or widening them a little to make it look like you're glaring. But you don't have to do all that much to really achieve an effective neutral face. Effective menacing face, sorry. But the vicious in this show, he turns around and he's going like that. He's going, I am evil. It's, I'm laughing just thinking about it. And he's supposed to be the main villain. And the first reaction I have to him is laughter. That's when I knew there was no saving this show. I'm laughing at the main villain. I'm laughing at a point where I'm supposed to be impressed. And that was when I knew for certain that I didn't need the other episodes. It's just not worth my time. And I don't think it's worth your time either, quite frankly. But, I mean, I can't stop you from watching it if you really want to check it out. Just know going in that you're not going to get much out of it. And I imagine there are plenty of other people who would laugh at Vicious too. I was in hysterics practically. But I mean, really, is anyone surprised? Hollywood and Western entertainment in general has tried so many different times to adapt anime and manga, and the only good one we've gotten so far is Alita Battle Angel. And I'm starting to think Alita Battle Angel was a fluke, because no one else has gotten it. And now with Cowboy Bebop, it seems like we're still years away from getting something else like Alita. I'm not surprised it's going to take this long. I mean, look at how long we had to wait after Richard Donner's Superman to get another decent superhero movie. But all the same, the live-action Cowboy Bebop is not worth it. I realize I haven't seen the whole thing. I don't need to. One episode is more than enough. If you want to watch Cowboy Bebop, take my advice, watch the original instead. It's on Netflix, or heck, break out a DVD or Blu-ray that you might have and watch that, because then at least you know no one's going to mess with it. But that's about all I can say. My word, I mean, it's going to be forgotten, basically. People will be talking about it for the weekend, maybe a little bit into next week, and then it's going to fade into obscurity. They'll probably announce a season 2, because I've heard they're filming a season 2, and nobody's going to care. And this will just be another footnote in entertainment history, forever overshadowed by the far superior original. And I'm saying that as someone who isn't really a super fan of the original, but I can still recognize quality when I see it. And this is not quality. And that's all. I've really got nothing else. I'm still snickering at their attempt to make me be afraid of Vicious. I can only hope that you laugh as much as I did if you see the episode for yourself. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books: Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.